Yeah, good morning, students. In the previous session, we had a discussion on how we can declare the two-dimensional arrays, and we also solved the problems on matrix operations like addition of matrices, subtraction of two given matrices, and also one problem we had discussed related to this lecture level practice problem. Under that matrix multiplication, we discussed that. So in today's session, we would like to discuss about the initialization concept of two-dimensional arrays, how we can initialize these two-dimensional arrays, and a few problems we will discuss, programming problems related to these two-dimensional arrays we will discuss. Fine. So now I would like to share my screen. So the today's session is 2D arrays initialization. Fine. So the objective of this today's session is that the session will develop the students' knowledge on two-dimensional arrays, declarations, and as well as the initialization of these two-dimensional arrays and how these two-dimensional arrays can be used. What are the applications of these 2D arrays? The outcome of this today's session is that after completion of the session, students will able to develop the code using C language and based on the concept of these 2D arrays. Now the two-dimensional arrays initialization, how we can initialize these two-dimensional arrays. The two-dimensional arrays can be known it as an array of arrays, we can call it as. So the two-dimensional arrays in C programming language is known as matrices. Just in the previous class we discussed that. So a matrix is nothing but it is a representation of a table of rows and columns. So there are two ways of initializing a two-dimensional array during the declaration of the array itself. So this is the first method of initializing. So int disp 2 comma 2 by 4. This is what the disp is an array having two rows and four columns. Then this is called it as a row-wise initialization. So we are enclosing this first row because there are two rows, each row having four columns. That means four elements. So we are enclosing this row 0 elements in the curly brace, and then this is a row 1 elements in another curly brace. So this two curly braces we are separating with the comma. This is what we are calling it as a row wise initialization of the matrix. So this is another way, so which we are calling it as the second method of initialization of the arrays. So you can list out all the values just similar to this one dimensional array, how we have given, how we have listed all the values in the curly braces. So this is how the system or the computer can understand is based on this. That is the reason columns are mandatory when you are initializing this two-dimensional array. But rows is optional. This is not mandatory. This is a specification of the row is an optional parameter. So why? Because of this only. Because once you specify the number of columns, it will divide that many number of values into rows. It can divide that. Fine. So the things that you must consider while initializing a 2D array is that, so we already know that when we initialize a normal array, that is a 1D array, during declaration, we need not specify the size of it. However, that is not the case with 2D array. You must always specify the second dimension. Fine, even if you are specifying the elements during the declaration. This is mandatory. Second dimension is mandatory. So, but in 1D array, you are not required to specify the size. Okay, so that is what you have to observe that. So here in this particular slide we have given some of the examples specifying that what valid some valid declarations and initializations of the two-dimensional arrays, and some are invalid, and we have specified the reasons why it is invalid here. So here you take, this is the first declaration. ABC is an array of 2 by 2. So where we are listing all the elements, okay, as similar with the one dimensional array. So where here in the second example we are specifying, we are fixing this number of columns, we are specifying it is mandatory. So here it is also valid. So here we are not specifying rows and columns, it is invalid because you must have to specify the second index, it is mandatory. So this is also invalid. Same thing holds here. You have specified the rows, but it is not required. But it is mandatory. This number of column specification is mandatory. Fine. So try to understand how we can initialize this two-dimensional arrays basically. Fine. So this is an example program here to demonstrate the declaration and initialization of a 2D array and displaying all those elements. Okay. So in this particular program, we are declaring ARR array is of size 4 rows and 3 columns. So 1, 2, 3 is the first row 0, 2, 3, 4 second row, and 3, 4, 5 third row, and 4, 5, 6 fourth row. So this is R0, row 0, and this is row 1 we are calling it as, and this is row 2 and row 3 we are calling it as. Fine. So these are the 3 rows, row wise initialization, this we are calling it as. So now how we can display this matrix ARR elements in the form of a matrix? Just we are making use of a nested for loop we are using here, because for I equal to 0, I less than 4, because 4 rows are there, I plus plus begin for j equal to 0, j less than 3, this is rows, and this j loop is for columns basically. Fine. So we are printing this I comma j, ARR of I j equal to percentage d error of I comma j. So this is what it is going to do. It is just printing all the elements of this particular matrix. Now coming to this reflection spot, this is identify the task that the following code will perform. So what it does here basically. Any idea we have here? So we are defining m 4 and n as 4. This is what we are defining, a matrix of size m cross n we are defining here, int mat of mn. So mn are the constants here. It is a 4 by 4, 4 cross 4 matrix is equal to, simply we have enclosed in a single zero in curly brace. What it indicates that? Any idea, students? So it is going to initialize all these 4 cross 4 matrix, all these 4 cross 4 matrix elements with zeros. So all these elements in the matrix are initialized with zeros. So that is what it does. You need not require to specify all the 16 zeros in this. Fine. So now the LOs are revisited here. After completion of this session, students will be able to develop the code using C language based on this two-dimensional array concept. So summary of this today's session is that we already defined that array is a homogeneous collection of similar data type elements, and they are stored in contiguous memory locations, whether it is 1D or 2D array. And arrays are basically derived data types, and array may be initialized at the time of declaration of that array itself. So when you are initializing an array, two-dimensional array, we are specifying that data type, array name followed by rows and columns. So columns, specifying the columns is compulsory, and then we can list out these values in single curly brace, or we can we can initialize this two-dimensional array by row wise also we can initialize, such that every row elements can be enclosed in what we are calling it as the curly braces. Row wise initialization we can do that. Fine. So this is a lecture level practice problem. So we are develop a C program to find the transpose of a given matrix. Fine. So thank you one and all. So